Iron Maiden are an English heavy metal band who were formed in 1975 in London and are still going 17 studio albums later. They had some initial turbulence before their membership settled mostly and was stable through the 80s. And they had huge success in the 80s as part of a movement called the New Wave of British Heavy Metal, NWOBHM for short. The 90s for them was turbulent again, and since around 2000, they have been relatively stable again, with mostly their 80s lineup. They're known for particularly known for the style of their album covers, which features their undead mascot by the name of Eddie. And they have been erroneously labelled as Satanist because the album named The Number of the Beast. I do not believe that they are, and they have protested this consistently. Apparently their drummer is a born-again Christian, which does not gel well with Satanism. Hi, my name's Dan, and this was the fifth studio album by Iron Maiden, and it's my first time listening to it. I have, of course, come across Iron Maiden, but I really basically know them from two or three songs that have had radio play. So I would describe this as being heavy metal of an 80s variety. So it's a little heavier than heavy rock, say someone like AC/DC, but not actually too dissimilar from a band that you still think of as being rock, Thin Lizzy. It's got a lot of guitar-y stuff going on, a lot of chords, and it's recognisable as music and as tunes. It's not the screamy noise fest that modern metal seems to be, which is kind of somewhere from the early 90s onwards. They went through a big change, or heavy metal generally did. So this is before that. So the distinctive features here are, I would say, fairly fast grooves, certainly a feature of harmonic guitars, so two guitars playing in harmony. Later in their band history, I believe they had three guitarists, so I'm interested in finding out what that produced as a sound. They sound very like Iron Maiden, so they remind me a lot of the songs of theirs that I have heard, so like Run to the Hills, for example. Um, there's the vocals are strong metal / rock vocals, definitely singing. It's got that kind of heavy metal waily feel. I don't mean that in a negative sense, massive vibrato. It's definitely a heavy rock voice, or a metal voice, if you like. The songs are about, so this is where I got surprised, is that the songs are mostly about history. So some are a bit about war. Ace is High, I think, is particularly about war. Flash of the Blade is about a swordsman. The Duelists is about, obviously, duelists. Back in the Village has a kind of historical feel to it as well. Powerslave is a bit more unusual. I didn't quite gather everything in it, but I kind of felt like it was an Egyptian / sci-fi thing. And probably my favourite track on the album is the nearly 14 minutes long Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, which is so called because actually it uses the lyrics are two sections from the Coleridge poem Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. Um, and it's good, and it includes several different musical sections, including a couple of bass-led bits that I think any modern metal band would be proud of. Um, uh, yeah, I want a word, presages or foreshadows. That's the word I'm looking for. That kind of stripped back drum and bass bit that you sometimes get in metal these days. Just one more track I'm going to mention, which is actually now most of the tracks, is Lost for Words, which is an instrumental, and you can kind of see why it's got that title. Musically, it's very competent. I think the thing that was slightly disappointing at times was the bass, not because the bass wasn't played well, but because the sound of the bass is very toppy and lacking somewhat at the bottom end. Particularly, I felt on the first track on the album. Um, but it's well played, yeah. And in fact, so overall, I felt it was the sort of thing that I could put on loud in the car, or in a pair of headphones and enjoy a bit of metal adrenaline. I do like a good bit of metal, and this is a good bit of metal. Yeah, I was quite impressed. I've not really embraced Iron Maiden before. As I say, I've just heard two or three of their songs that I would say I would recognise. I was surprised by how accessible I found this. I thought that Iron Maiden were by nature a bit more extreme than this, and I was wrong, and I enjoyed it. So, as always, at this point, I'd like to invite you to tell me how you feel about this album. So, if you've got a time machine, you could go back in time and you could etch it into the stones at Stonehenge, and then send me a message once you got back to tell me to go and find it. Or if you find it easy, you could put a comment in the comments box for me to see and for everybody else to see who happens to read it. That's it from me for now.